Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Momentum's webinar on Cloud ERP. Really appreciate you all attending. My name is Al Emery. I'm the Managing Director at Momentum Software Solutions. And we have a packed agenda this morning, so I'm going to jump right into it, starting with just a bit of web meeting etiquette. So we would ask that everybody on the session please mute your microphone. There's an icon in the top right-hand corner for doing that. It just stops any background noise coming through when the presenters are speaking, so much appreciated if you can do that. We do encourage questions, so you can use the chat box or the Q&A box that appear in the toolbar at the top of the Teams screen that you're looking at now. So our agenda today, and I'm going to get straight into it, is a quick introduction from me. We're going to introduce you to Filip Dimkovski from Solutions Minds Consulting, who is going to speak to you about how you might evaluate cloud ERP systems for your business, because they're not all the same. Then I'll be talking about the different features and functions and strengths and weaknesses of MYOB Advanced ERP and Wiise ERP. With a fairly detailed comparison of each, and we'll do a quick demonstration of some of the key ease of use features as well. And then we're going to have Clive Gardner, CEO of Workbench Central, which I would describe as cloud project management, sophisticated job costing software. So we think we've got something for everybody. We've got some existing Momentum customers on the call. We have some businesses who are looking at and thinking seriously about moving to cloud ERP. So hopefully you'll all gain some useful information from this morning's session. So next slide, please. So Momentum have been in business for over 15 years. Just recently, we were awarded MYOB's Channel Partner of the Year for Australia and New Zealand. We are a Wiise Elite Partner. We have over 250 customers, predominantly in Queensland, but all around Australia. And implementing ERP is all we do. So before we jump into the comparison, I think it's important to understand, why you might consider moving to a cloud ERP and the things that you might really investigate in doing so. And so rather than have that come from us, and we're not necessarily impartial, we thought it would be a great idea to have somebody completely independent, Filip Dimkovski from Solutions Minds Consulting, and he's going to give you some advice on how you might evaluate cloud ERP. Thanks, Filip.
Thanks, Al. Morning, everybody, and thanks for your time this morning. So next slide, please, Morgan. So just a bit of an agenda as to what we're going to be going through this morning. I'll give you a bit of an introduction of myself and where I kind of fit in the landscape, I guess, on the ERP side of things, and SMC as an organization and what we do. We'll look at how we help organizations, and they really get into the nuts and bolts of cloud ERP. What does it mean? What you should look out for? Some of the pros and cons, and we'll see how that looks like for you as organizations. Next slide, please. Okay, so my background is 21 odd years in the ERP space. I used to work, I've started my career in New Zealand with an ERP partner. Have worked in Africa, all around Africa, implementing, on the client side, implementing ERP systems across the continent for a large multinational organization, and have worked in Australia for the last few years, since 2007 actually, on the partner side of things, selling, implementing, developing, supporting ERP software in Australia, New Zealand, and globally for that matter. My background is in the mining and mining services space. However, have worked with organizations in all industries, and have been, as I said, in the industry for over 20 years. Joined SMC about 3 years ago, and I'll give you a bit of an introduction as to what we do at SMC. So next slide, please. So as an organization, as Al mentioned, that we are 100% independent. So we don't sell any software, we don't sell any licenses. We're funded in 2006 by an ex-Deloitte's partner, who found a gap in the marketplace in Australia and New Zealand of truly independent management consultants around ERP or enterprise systems, I should say. We have very strong project delivery capabilities. We've been working, we've been funded, started in 2006 and have been helping organizations since then. We have our own IP that we bring to projects to help organizations and really drive digital transformations through the better use of enterprise system technologies. We have a large team of 50-odd consultants across Australia. Our head office is in Perth, and we have offices in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. And I'm the regional director here in the Brisbane office. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do we help organizations as SMC? Next slide, please, Morgan. So we help organizations through essentially helping them initially start with building their digital strategy, looking at their business processes and how they can potentially optimize their business process through the use of modern enterprise systems or ERP systems. We help them with the selection of those systems, and we have worked, full disclosure, we have worked with Momentum in the past through different selections where they have been involved. We help organizations with the planning process of how the implementation is going to be happening and being implemented, and then help with the organization implement the systems. However, the difference with us is that we work on the client side only. So we essentially are there to backfill client resources where clients require some specific resources they may not have in-house. We don't do any of the technical work that the vendors normally would do. And as I said, like we can help organizations with project leads, with business analysts, with change managers, data migration, and so on and so forth. Whenever we do any type of project, we always apply the 5 lenses across it. That is technology, whether you have the right systems and technology stack for the organization, the processes, whether your processes are fully optimized, and how you can get best use out of those systems. Your people, making sure that your people also support your projects, like an ERP transformation project, and make it, because they're the most important part of any project. Without your people, you would not have the most successful ERP implementation, as I'm sure some of you may be aware of. Data and AI, and that is how you actually use data. And nowadays, more so artificial intelligence to improve your analysis of your organization, and governance, making sure that you have the right structures in the organization to be able to execute projects of this nature. Next slide, please. So look, just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware here that we don't also specialize in any particular industry. We work across multiple industries, from government through to large multinational organizations with global footprint. As an organization, because we don't sell any software and we don't specialize in any systems per se, we have the ability to be able to execute projects of that nature. And we work with companies basically from startup organizations all the way through multi-billion-dollar international organizations. Okay, so what Cloud ERP means and why companies should be considering the migration. Next slide, please. So look, I think by now, most of you would have heard the word cloud. It's not a new term. It's been here since the early 2000s, probably mid 2000s, I should say. However, not every system has migrated into the cloud environment in the same way. And when I say system, I'm talking about enterprise systems. So really, Cloud ERP refers to deployment of the ERP systems into a cloud computing platform. ERP software, obviously, you guys would be aware that helps organizations with integration and management of your business processes, integration of finance, HR, inventory management, supply chain management, CRM, enterprise asset management, and there's a raft of other things that ERP software can help you. Different organizations will have a different need for to be fulfilled from the ERP system. So that's also important to consider when you are looking at systems like Cloud ERPs. By leveraging cloud technology, Cloud ERP enables businesses to access the ERP system through the internet on any device from anywhere. Cloud ERP eliminates the need for on-prem hardware, reduces hardware, and it reduces your overall IT costs. So essentially, organizations don't need to necessarily have internal IT departments or internal resources managing those servers, managing those systems. In a cloud-based environment, you essentially have that managed for you, and that's what you pay for. And you can then focus on running your business, which is what you guys are specialists in. It gives you a Cloud ERP system, provides you greater scalability, flexibility, and reliability. So you can easily increase the use of the system, decrease the use of the system. Nowadays, most systems give you very high accessibility to a system, we're talking about 99.9% uptime, depending on which platform you are, whether it's the AWS or Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure or any of the other platforms. System upgrades are rolled out somewhat seamlessly compared to on-prem or private cloud solutions. So with a lot of true cloud ERP systems, you essentially get the system upgrades as they become available, meaning that you're always on the latest systems and always utilizing, or at least have access to, all the latest changes and all the latest features of those systems. And cloud ERP solutions typically offer subscription-based pricing models, which can make it more affordable for small and mid-sized businesses to adopt an ERP system than in the past, where you had to have a huge capital outlay to potentially get an on-prem ERP solution. Next slide, please. So when do we want to consider cloud ERP systems? When you may need to scale your business without worrying about infrastructure and hardware. A lot of businesses nowadays, even large multinational organizations, are trying to reduce their infrastructure footprint internally and trying to move to this type of platforms. So when you want to scale, you don't want to worry about hardware or anything like that internally or managing those systems. That's when we want to consider cloud ERPs. When you may want to reduce some of your IT costs by eliminating the need for upfront on-premise hardware, infrastructure, support, and maintenance costs. So essentially, I want one system that is basically just going to run there in the background. Somebody's going to support it for me, and I'm just simply going to be using that system. When you want to save on upfront licensing fees. So in the past, a lot of the times when you were buying ERP systems, you had to essentially pay for your licenses upfront, which was a huge outlay for smaller organizations and for large organizations for that matter. So going down the subscription-based model means that you can essentially claim this as operational expenditure, and you have a monthly fee essentially that you're paying for the use of that software. When you need to increase accessibility and mobility for remote workers, field teams, employees on the go. So nowadays, and with the new generation coming online, most organizations and most employees want to be able to do essentially everything on the go, on their mobile devices, on their laptops, at the airport. So by going into the cloud platform and in cloud ERP systems, you actually are enabling your employees to have a much better experience within the organization. And obviously that does help with employee retention of employees. When you need real-time collaboration among teams and departments. So essentially everybody having access in real time of the system, of the data, enables you to be able to essentially work together in a collaborative environment. When you want to enhance data security and compliance, it is very important that a lot of the ERP systems that are in the cloud-based environment, as I mentioned earlier, work on platforms like Microsoft Azure, or I should say deployed on platforms like Microsoft Azure or AWS, which are very secure platforms overall. I'm not saying that they're fully 100% secure, but they're very, very secure as opposed to private cloud environments or your own on-prem solutions. So essentially, by going down this path, you're also ensuring that you are compliant from a security perspective and all of that. And when you have the desire to stay up to date with technology. So in the past, when you've had on-prem systems, it's very easy, and some of you may relate to this, to fall behind. Certainly the vendor that I was working for before, where clients had on-prem solutions, upgrade paths were quite difficult, meaning that sometimes clients just simply fell behind. We're talking about 6-7 years behind with the latest software, and then the upgrade becomes even more unattainable because of complexity between moving of the different versions over the years. So by being on the cloud in a cloud environment, what it means is that you can do those upgrades seamlessly and access to those new features as they happen, meaning that you can avoid long and costly upgrades and just simply keep up to date on a regular basis. And most vendors nowadays, I'm not saying all of them, most of them have either quarterly or half-yearly releases for the cloud ERP systems. Next slide, please. So what to consider when in a cloud ERP? Your business requirements. So it is very important to understand what you actually require of an ERP system. This is not just for cloud ERPs, this is for any ERP system, irrespective of how it's deployed, but it is important to consider your requirements, your company size, and your overall business model. The necessary features and functionality to support the organizational business processes, very critical. You don't want to be getting into a system that is not going to be able to fundamentally support your critical business processes. The integration platform, that is very important. Nowadays, more and more nowadays, systems are becoming essentially, I call them decentralized, meaning that the one ERP system doesn't have everything within it. What it means is that they have ISV solutions, which are essentially best of breed solutions that integrate with those systems. And most systems give you the ability, most ERP systems, I should say, they give you the ability to easily extend the integration with other applications. So it is very critical to consider a platform that's going to allow you to do that without unnecessary blockages. And believe me, there are different platforms out there that have different rule sets, and certainly some of them are very restrictive as opposed to others. The security measures in place to protect sensitive data and meet regulatory compliance like GDPR, SOX, and so on. So it is very important that any cloud ERP system that you are considering is deployed on a globally recognized platform with this type of certifications already available across it. Whether the system is scalable and flexible, allowing you to essentially add, remove users at will, to grow to a size that without any limitations for growth, so to speak. Whether the system is easy to use and intuitive, user-friendly, interface and customizable dashboards. As I mentioned earlier, the employee experience with the system is very critical. Employees will essentially be the most important part for a successful ERP deployment. And it is important that when you are looking at a system, that you are looking at a system that's easy to use, that it's not overly complex, gives you the functionality you want, but it's intuitive, that you can just simply go in there and be able to, by playing around with it, figure out what you need to be doing. And there's certainly a lot of systems out there that give you that. And there's also systems out there that are very complex to use, which obviously becomes a bit of an issue going forward. The cloud ERP should be affordable and offer a pricing model that is within your budget. So cloud ERP systems nowadays, even though they offer the subscription-based model, you have different price ranges, different implementation costs. So it's important to understand what your budget is before you start looking at a system. Important to understand what your ceiling is, and then start looking through for a system in that way. And then finally, the cloud ERP vendor should have good reputation, offer reliable customer support, training, implementation, ongoing maintenance, and support. It's imperative to understand that having a great partner behind you, it's very important. That partner is going to be the make or break for your system implementation as well. And having that great relationship with that partner is one of the most critical things. And we see it time and time again where you may have a really good system out there that you've selected, but a poor implementation partner, and then challenges can happen. So when you are looking at cloud ERP systems, you also need to be evaluating the partner that's going to be implementing that system for you, or with you, I should say. And finally, look, just as a summary, some of the pros of cloud ERPs: accessibility, scalability, cost effectiveness, the ability to get automatic updates to new features, security, and reliability. On the other side, we have constraints around internet connectivity. Not all of them have offline capability, meaning that if you don't have internet, you're not going to be able to access the system. It's becoming less and less of an issue nowadays. Customization limitations. So with cloud ERP, you are using a full platform, meaning that you have some limitations when it comes to customizing the system, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you hopefully we try to stay within the bounds of the ERP as opposed to having to customize it. You have a more dependency on the vendor. Data sovereignty sometimes could potentially be an issue, meaning that where is the data located? So it is important to look at that. And nowadays, most cloud ERP systems have data centers in Australia, meaning that your data is secured here in Australia. And integration issues. Every time you have a cloud system and you need to do integrations, there would potentially be some challenges. That's just simply to make you aware of that. So that's essentially everything that I had for you this morning. I hope you enjoyed that. And then if there's any questions, please put them through to the Q&A. Thank you very much. Al, over to you.
Thank you very much, Filip. That was a great overview in a compressed period of time. And I'll circle back to a couple of key points that we think Filip can add a lot of value to some of our customers, and we'll circle back to that at the end. So let's jump right into the next part of today's session, which is probably what most of you are here for, and that's just to have a discussion about MYOB Advanced and Wiise ERP, what they are, what they're good at, what industries they do well in. So firstly, MYOB Advanced. So this is a cloud ERP, been available in the market in Australia since 2014. You can see all the modules that it handles there. So it's a very comprehensive suite of functionality. And certainly for the last 8 or so years of our business, that's been the most prevalent ERP system we've been selling and implementing, until more recently, where we've been involved with Wiise as well. For customers of ours that are using EXO, I would say that, you know, Wiise, Advanced is not EXO in the cloud. It's a very different solution with different features, many similar features, but you wouldn't assume or shouldn't assume that it's the same. So Wiise, I'll introduce that. A lot of people may not have heard of Wiise, but Wiise is built on Microsoft product. So the Microsoft product that it's built on is called Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, which is Microsoft's Cloud ERP for the mid-market, which has been around for some time. But Microsoft, being a global player, tend not to do localized features for individual countries. So things like the BAS, bank feeds into your bank reconciliation process, and Australian accounting standards. And so what Wiise have done is they've taken Microsoft Business Central and localized it for Australian businesses. And in addition to that, Microsoft don't do payroll software. And so what Wiise have done is taken the best-in-class cloud payroll software in Australia, called Employment Hero Payroll, which used to be known as KeyPay, and they've effectively embedded it into the ERP. So apart from strong financials and all of the other features, you'll see similar modules to what you saw on the previous slide. You get localized Australian accounting standards, bank feeds, payroll. And also importantly, it lives in the Microsoft stack. So it integrates seamlessly with all the Microsoft products like Outlook, Excel, Power BI, Power Automate, etc. We'll show you some of that a little bit later. Next slide, please, Morgan. So let's just go through a bit of a comparison. And these are just our observations of what we think about the products. They are both designed really for what we would call the mid-market. So they're particularly strong with multi-entity organizations. So a lot of our customers, they don't just have one company, they have multiple companies. And if you're using small business software like Xero, MYOB AccountRight, or even MYOB EXO, every company is in a separate database and they don't talk to each other. In both Advanced and Wiise, you can have all of your companies in a single database and have automated inter-entity trading, which is a very nice feature. So if company A sells to company B within your corporate hierarchy, then the opposing side of the transaction, the purchase, the inventory movement, the accounts payable, can be automated. They can both operate in multiple companies. So if you have subsidiaries in New Zealand or USA or other countries, then that is handled. Business turnover, bit hard to say, anywhere between 5 million and 500 million. Our smallest customers on either were startups, and our largest is $1 billion turnover. But on average, or the median, is probably somewhere in the 10 million to $100 million range. What that really means is too big or too complex to be running Xero or MYOB AccountRight or QuickBooks, but not having the need or the budget for SAP or Oracle, for example. Anywhere between 20 and 1,000 employees. And obviously on the MYOB side, they're a very well-known and trusted accounting and payroll brand. They have a lot of other integrated services like PaySuper. MYOB Advanced is running on the Amazon AWS platform with a MySQL database. And there's quite a significant ecosystem of integrated add-ons using APIs. On Wiise, you can see, as I mentioned, localization of Microsoft Business Central, all running on the Microsoft stack in the Azure environment, and native integration with just about all the other Microsoft products. Next slide, thanks, Morgan. So if you look at different industries, and this might be topical for you, so I'll cover, the main ones. So wholesale, distribution, there's various flavors of that. So whether you're importing or exporting, whether you have an e-commerce element, they're both really good at that. So we couldn't really split them. They both handle lots of features, and I'll go into more detail. Manufacturing, equally both very strong at what we call discrete manufacturing with full MRP, multi-level bill of materials, production planning, etc. Construction, we would say MYOB Advanced, it has in particular a construction edition, plays pretty well in the commercial construction space. Wiise, I would say, not suited for construction, not really designed for, but Clive from Workbench, who will be jumping on a little later, their solution, which is construction, civil, and various other things, integrates with both Wiise and MYOB Advanced. So there's still a solution there. Professional services, so businesses that do time billing, basically white collar professional services firm, we would lead towards advanced business on that one. Not-for-profit, government-styled organisations, that can include some healthcare. Wiise is very strong in that space, quite widely used already around the market. And the budgeting, reporting, integration with payroll at the program or cost centre level works very well. Hospitality, pubs, clubs, we would say the same. Wiise is very strong in that area and integrates with a number of retail point of sale systems for pubs and clubs. Field service equipment management, probably couldn't split them. They both have strong functionality there. And jobs and projects, so that's in orange. And the reason they're in orange is that they both have good features, but they're very, very different. So what works best for you kind of depends on the types of jobs or projects you do and the way you run your business. So we would have a deeper discussion about that. Next slide, thanks, Morgan. A couple of gaps. So retail is kind of a gap, and the reason is neither solution has their own point of sale module as part of the ERP. There are a couple of, I think there's one point of sale system that integrates with Advanced. There are several that integrate with Wiise, which is why the pubs and clubs did come up. And then there's a few below there where I would call it complex or sophisticated construction, in particularly civil, technical trades or labour hire, mining services, rental, or businesses that in particular that need employees working on jobs with awards, so overtime calculations, awards, all linked back to a job. So let's say you're paying people on different awards depending on the mine site they're working on, for example. And another key one is having offline capability in a mobile application. So we've highlighted Workbench there. We think it covers those industry verticals very well. So a slight level deeper, ease of use, both systems very flexible, very easy to use, customizable screen layouts, ability to multitask, dashboards, searching and finding things, both very good. Operating in multiple jurisdictions or countries, we would say Wiise are better in that space, particularly because it's all in the Azure environment and much easier to deploy. Next level down, we've got multi-company, multi-branch, multi-department or cost center. So you might have multiple companies, you might have multiple divisions or branches within those companies. You might have departments or revenue streams, all of which you're looking to budget, report on, see your business performance on. So both very strong in that area. We think some of the ease of use around multi-company is particularly strong in Advanced, where you can transact within the one screen for all the entities, for example, an accounts payable invoice. So monitoring business performance is very much about that, segmented general ledger with budgeting and reporting at all of those levels. Both do that very well. Intercompany trading, as I mentioned earlier. So if you have multiple companies and company A sells products or services to company B and automating those transactions without having to do the double entry, both do that very well. Consolidated reporting. So that's, rationalizing or consolidating the reporting for all of those entities from a general ledger perspective. Both very handle it very well. Wiise slightly better because it handles an elimination process where you want to eliminate, say, intercompany sales purchases from the P&L. Strong set of standard reports in both. Easy ability to integrate because they both have APIs that cover just about all aspects of the system. Able to be customized by the individual user as far as what their screen layout looks like, processes they do, embedded applications. And then the last on that list is Microsoft integration, which we tend to all use but not really think about. So whether that's integration with your email, working in Excel, Wiise particularly strong in that area, being part of the Microsoft family. Next slide, Morgan. So then let's just go into a few functional areas. So they both handle bank feeds very nicely. MYOB probably handles more banks, but Wiise certainly handles all the main ones. Inventory distribution, sales purchases. Like I say, they both work very well in that area. MYOB Advanced has its own WMS, so barcode scanning out of the box, but there are add-ons available for Wiise and their own WMS functionality on the roadmap to come shortly. Projects and jobs, as I mentioned earlier, they're quite different, and so strengths in different areas depending on your business and how you operate. The CRM, both have CRM modules which enable you to handle prospects, opportunities, quoting, and marketing campaigns. Both have discrete manufacturing modules with multi-level bill of material, MRP. The manufacturing module in Advanced probably has 2 or 3 extra features that I'll touch on later. They both do asset maintenance or service and equipment. So that's where you might have people in your service department or install department going and doing small jobs in different locations and then scheduling around that. Fixed assets, so that's fixed asset module with depreciation, purchase and disposal. Payroll, I think that's a differentiator. Having the embedded KeyPay or Employment Hero payroll, that's pretty much best in class for your size business in Australia. And you could add to that workforce management. Workforce management I would describe as things like onboarding of new employees, setting rosters, award interpretation or overtime calculations. Employment Hero handles that particularly well. Or Wiise Payroll as it's branded within Wiise. And both have a mobile app. The MYOB Advanced mobile app probably handles a few more things, but both have mobile capability. So I'll do a quick industry-specific comparison with a little more detail. So if you're in wholesale distribution dealing with inventory, no clear winner, both very good. So multi-warehouse, multiple bins or locations within that warehouse, very strong replenishment, reordering of product, landed costs, very flexible pricing and discounting from both a sell and a buy perspective, maintaining different costs for product in different warehouses. So if you operate in multiple states, you might have a different average cost because you buy from a different supplier in Victoria versus Queensland, for example. Multi-unit of measure, item substitution, item variants or matrix items. So that's where you have the same product, but in different colors or sizes or variants. So very strong in that industry. We couldn't split them as far as what we think works better. Manufacturing, again, both very good. Wiise has very good capacity planning. Couple of things so they both have multi-level bill of material, full MRP. So the MRP will basically calculate sub-assemblies you need to make based on your demand, production orders you need to create based on your demand, all of the raw materials that you need to order based on that demand, etc. A few little differences. So MYOB Advanced has a product configurator, often known as CPQ, configure price quote. Wiise, there are add-ons for that. In Advanced, you can do estimating and create a custom bill of material on the fly. There is a visual scheduler So production planning via a Gantt chart style layout. There is an add-on available for that with Wiise. Engineering change control, so that's where you want to make a change to a bill of material, but that requires an approval process because it's a important controlled process. Add-ons available for that in Wiise. And in advance, you can also do data collection, so scanning of time and materials at each work centre. So we have customers running both in manufacturing very successfully, both strong in that area. Next slide. Not for profit. First one is that the licensing, Microsoft offer significant discounts for their licensing, which is passed on by Wiise. So the licensing is very attractive. Not for profit tends to be cost center accounting on steroids, and both do that very well. But Wiise in particular does it exceptionally well. And with the embedded Wiise payroll, works well in that space. And there's often a requirement for HR, and Wiise payroll integrates natively with Employment Hero HR. Next slide, Morgan. Construction, we'll skip through. As I said, Advanced has specifically built out functionality for construction and has a construction edition which handles subcontracts, variations, retentions, etc. And for bigger or more sophisticated construction, then Workbench is a very strong option as well. So let's go through a quick demonstration and look at, particularly we're focusing on ease of use for each system and how it looks. So you've got a bit of an idea of what they look like, how to navigate around, and some of the key features around multi-company and integration. This is Al Emery from Momentum Software Solutions, taking you through a quick comparison of MYOB Advanced ERP and Wiise ERP. So I'm going to start with log on and navigation and ease of use. So you should see my browser here, and I'll start with MYOB Advanced. So being a browser-based application, you log in with a username and password. MYOB Advanced has two-factor authentication and more recently single sign-on with Azure. Separately, I'll open my Wiise demonstration environment. And because Wiise is part of the Office 365 family of products, because I'm already logged in to SharePoint Office 365, I don't need to log in again to access Wiise. So the first thing you'll see in each system is a presentation that's pre-configured for your role or user. And that can be, in the case of MYOB Advanced, a dashboard or any screen that is set as your home page. So each person has a user profile, and the home page can be set to any screen in MYOB Advanced. The other thing that you'll notice is that the menu navigation is to the left. So each module or functional part of the system you can access via a menu, and within each menu you'll see profiles, processes, reports, inquiries, and the commonly used parts, or access to everything depending on your role. In Wiise, you'll see that the navigation is more vertical. So rather than menus down the left, we have menus at the top. So each functional area, if you click on the little widget there, you'll see the different individual functions or features that you might access from that module, again, based on your role, or what in Wiise is called a role center. So I'm accessing the Business Manager role center. Each screen is customizable. So if we go back to Advanced, one thing you'll notice is that you have this dashboard here. Any of those dashboards can be edited, again, subject to user permissions. So you can add, remove, move around the different widgets that make up this dashboard. Any of the information in these dashboards is drillable, so by clicking on it, you would then drill through to more detailed information. Likewise, in Wiise, I can choose to personalize my view, and that gives me the ability to add, remove, reorder any of the information on this screen. So I can move things about, add, remove, right through what's available on this Business Manager Role Center profile. I'd say the color palette in Wiise is a little bit more subtle. So the out-of-the-box dashboard that you see is well organized on the screen, and scrolling down, you can see things that a business manager might want to see. So business performance, cash flow forecast, financial performance, taking into account receivables, payables, liquid funds, cash flow, trial balance, email inbox, approvals. You can add Power BI into that report. The other thing that both solutions offer is a search bar or a global search. So in the search bar in Wiise, as soon as I start typing, I'll then be given options for accessing parts of the system with matching words. So sales credit memos, sales orders, sales invoices, sales reports. It gives me the option to search in the help. And it actually also brings up add-ons from the Microsoft App Source that might relate to the subject I've searched for. You can also multitask. So one thing that people like to do a lot, especially those of us that use multiple monitors, is to do two things or have two screens open at once, either in separate tabs or in separate screens. So I can duplicate this tab in Wiise and then access, say, purchase orders. And obviously, if you are having multiple monitors, you can move that across to your second monitor quite easily. In Advanced, you have similar options. So the global search at the top, and it does probably a little bit more than Wiise in terms of the global search. So let's say I type in sales, then immediately without hitting enter, I get any matching menu item with the word sales. If I hit enter, then it will search transactionally for any record in the system matching that, be it part of a customer name or part of a transaction. And then if I hit enter again, it will search in the help. So probably a little bit more flexible in the global search for MYOB Advanced. The other thing that I'd add is the multitasking is probably slightly easier because any menu item I could simply right click and go open a new tab, open a new window. So both support multitasking, multiple tabs, multiple browsers. So again, focusing on ease of use, some of the things that you might want to do is to filter lists of information. So for example, invoices and memos, adding and removing columns to the screen, and that would add those to your personal screen as opposed to globally. The other thing you can do in MYOB Advanced is to add filters. So as soon as you add a filter on different information, you can save that filter. And for example, this is a filter containing only balanced invoices. And this one is set as a shared filter that everybody could access. One thing that Advanced enables you to do from a search screen is create a pivot table. So this virtually renders your invoice list as an age trial balance straight on the screen by using a pivot. And if we look at the pivot options, you can just simply see you drag fields into your rows, columns, and values, and then that will display the pivot exactly like that. In Wiise, you have similar options in that you can personalize any of these search grids, add fields to the grid, move or remove fields from the grid, and also use filters and save those. So quite similar. The only thing you can't do in Wiise is create a pivot on the fly for that. But one thing you can do in Wiise, which is very nice, is sharing and editing. So a Wiise screen can be opened in Excel, which will simply export that data into an Excel spreadsheet. But if you edit it in Excel, it will open a linked spreadsheet, enabling you to edit some of these fields, and it will directly write it back without having to do a separate import. And you can also share to your teams. So the Excel integration, being a Microsoft product, is outstanding in Wiise. In Advanced, you can export to Excel, and certain screens allow you to upload from a file, and there is a number of other ways of importing data from Excel, but not quite as well integrated as Wiise. We're going to touch on multiple companies now. Both systems support multiple companies, but they do it in different ways. In Advanced, you can have multiple companies all in the same database. And one advantage of that is that people can transact against any of those companies in the one screen without having to jump backwards and forwards into different companies or even into different screens. So if we look at an example, each company has its own name and key information, address, etc., ABN branch number if you're grouped for GST, and can also have a different visual appearance, which means that the color palette around the outside and the logo would automatically update depending on which one you choose. And this one is then broken down into two branches, being Melbourne and Sydney, for that company. Now, what that enables me to do in MYOB Advanced is have a single general ledger chart of accounts, a single list of customers and suppliers and inventory, and then use that any of that information across all of the companies. And even say in my list of invoices, I can filter on the branch, and branch basically means company. So I can see all transactions for all companies in one screen, and I can report on any company if I do a P&L from within the one screen. The other thing that Advanced handles quite well is intercompany trading. So if you have multiple companies and they buy and sell from each other, then a sales order where company A is selling to company B will generate a purchase order in company B. And when that sales order is supplied and invoiced, it will create a receipt and accounts payable invoice in company B. And there's a number of other intercompany transactions that can be done. In Wiise, the companies are a little bit different. They are separate databases and they have their own master files. And you can switch between companies basically by saying, I'm going to switch, and I'm going to open that in a new tab, and then I can be transacting in multiple companies, but I would be doing it in a slightly different way. Let's do that one. So I can transact and report in multiple companies at the same time, albeit the databases are in fact separate. Wiise does also support intercompany trading, so long as you have got alignment of data, so you can still buy and sell between your companies, and the opposing transactions will automatically be created for you. Just has a slightly different architecture in doing that. I'll just touch now on email integration. Both MYOB Advanced and Wiise have Outlook add-ins that allow you to interact and transact within your inbox and create records and transactions in the ERP. So we'll start with the MYOB Advanced Outlook add-in. So I have an email from somebody. I can click on that email and then click on the MYOB Advanced mobile app. If it recognizes this person based on their email address, it will tell me who they are and what business they're related to. If it doesn't recognize them at all, I can create that record as a lead or a contact. So let's go ahead and do a lead. And the reason I'm doing that is a lead allows me to quickly capture the person as well as something about their business. So I can just add in a business name. Often this would be picked up from their email address anyway, or the email signature. and I can create that lead. Now that it's a lead, I can actually create an opportunity or log an activity. So if that contract already existed, I would have additional options to that where I can create a case in the service or CRM module, or create an opportunity, or simply log the activity, which will record the email against their account. So if I jump back into the browser, refresh my screen here, then here I can see Chris, who's just been created as a lead. And in MYOB Advanced CRM, a lead can be converted into a prospect, an account, as well as just simply convert to an opportunity. And an opportunity allows you to create a quote, be it a sales quote or a project quote, and then progress that through to a transaction.
I'm going to show you how Wiise seamlessly integrates with other Microsoft apps. So for example, I'll bring up my Outlook and I have received a request from a customer. I can get further details from that customer using Contacts Insights. And this will give me historical data, any amounts owing, any current sales orders, what has been shipped to the customer, just really useful data. You can help analyze the data without leaving your Outlook. You can also add links and notes, and this will all write back to Wiise. Further to that, if I wanted to create an order while I'm still in Microsoft Outlook, I can go to here and go to sales order. And you can see that the item matches. You can pick the items and click OK. And here you can create and update the sales order. You can change any information. And if you want to go back and work in the Wiise ERP, you can go back to Wiise and view your sales orders. And there it is. You can also view data in Microsoft Teams. So here you can look at different data sets. So here I have vendor, items, bank accounts, and chart of accounts. So while you're in Microsoft Teams, you can go into customers and view their data. You can also update this data and it'll talk back to Wiise.
Both MYOB Advanced and Wiise have a mobile app. So again, I'm showing you the MYOB Advanced mobile app on my phone. I can use my Face ID to log in. The mobile app supports both iOS and Android, and supports quite a lot of the functionality that you would see in the ERP. Not every single function, but much of it. So time and expenses allows me to do expense receipts and claims, etc. Enter time. From a CRM perspective, I can look at opportunities, quotes, orders, etc. Projects, purchases. So many of the key features that you see in the ERP are available in the mobile app.
So if you are working on the go, for instance, you're at a client site and you need to access your ERP system, you can do so using a tablet or a mobile. So on the left, I have the tablet view of how your dashboard will look like, and on the right, the same view for the mobile. You could review a lot of data sets in here. You look at your sales. You can also create a sales, for example, a sales quote. You can create that, whether if you're on a customer site, you can quote them while you're there. You don't need to go back to your office. And the same for mobile. So I can create a sales invoice and then input all my data.
Right. It's still good morning, everyone. The next 10 minutes, I just want to cover off on some of the sort of key functional aspects of Workbench. So we'll look at specific sort of subject areas and just give you a sense of the depth and breadth of Workbench. Next slide, please. Yeah. So Workbench has been designed as a best of breed application. Our background is accounting, is ERP, and as a result of feedback from clients, generally they were saying that whilst they were happy from an accounting perspective, they really wanted deeper functionality for their operational people, and that was what prompted us to develop Workbench. So essentially, in this discussion, we're replacing the project ledger in MYOB or Wiise with Workbench. That's a job costing model with various modules to provide that deeper functionality where it's needed. So we do a lot of work with larger projects, and there our contract and subcontract management becomes very important, and we'll cover up a little bit more of that later. Quoting and estimating, we obviously do that, and that's obviously relevant to everyone, but we find in reality in different industry sectors, clients often have different needs, and they might well go to a specialist estimating tool, in which case we're totally comfortable just importing that data, and we have some standard interfaces with some of the more commonly used estimating tools. Procurement, again, a big thing for us, and again, these are all functions that exist in the ERPs we've just been looking at, but our users are typically people at the coalface, and so we're trying to provide them with a tool that they will use day to day. And importantly, all this functionality just passing through to the financial system. So if you take a purchase transaction, we will deal with it in Workbench. When the invoice comes in, it's matched off in Workbench, and we simply pass it through to accounts payable so it can be paid by the ERP system. So we're simply mapping our cost items through to the GL. So it's the equivalent implementation to a job cost system inside the ERP. The end result should be no different, really. We're just, as a specialist application, we're just getting into more detail in a number of areas, which we'll cover off on. And the other important piece is mobility. So we've actually introduced a third-party technology into Workbench, and it's highly integrated, and it's an environment we develop in. But again, operationally, as we're all aware, there's many good, very specialist mobile apps out there, particularly around health and safety, timesheets, and so forth. And the biggest criticism we come across is, whilst they're good applications, they don't integrate to anything. So our objective with Workbench is to provide an integrated operational management solution interfacing into the financials, and the integration is standard, out the box. There's no customization, and whether it's MYOB Advanced or Wiise, it's the same level of integration. And in summary, the transactional data is moving up from Workbench, the like customer and supplier master files and receipts and payments are coming down from those financial systems, just to keep the operational people informed that a client's been paid, client has paid us. Next slide, please. So we're very much project centric. This is what we do. Civil's probably our largest market, followed by the technical trades and fabrication, and vertical construction we do as well. But really, any business that is project centric, we're worth having a look at. Next. So we've been providing Workbench for over 25 years now. So functionally, the subject's well understood. We released about 6 years ago our cloud version, which has been very well received. So it's hosted on AWS, very much along the lines of what Filip and Al have been saying. So it's all cloud-based in a secure hosted platform. And the other important point here is we develop the software and we implement directly. So we do have a lot of industry expertise, and picking up on Filip's point earlier, it's not only about choosing the software, but you need to choose the organization that's going to work with you. And we have a very good working relationship with Momentum, and our consultants do have a depth of industry knowledge that certainly contributes well to the implementation. Next, please. And just to give you a tastes of a typical client, so someone like Brockman here. So they're a multi-company, publicly listed company, large fabrication type projects. So Workbench is obviously managing these projects. And just picking up on the intercompany discussion, Workbench is a multi-company ledger as well, so we work well with both products in terms of those intercompany environments. Next, M2P, again, large engineering business. Interestingly, in this particular company, a lot of their work is done in an open book type arrangement. So these are large specialist projects where they're sort of partnering with the client, and it's a sort of a very sophisticated cost plus environment. So again, there's a lot of detail there that we work through. Looking at Workbench specifically, here's a home page. So when I log in, depending on my level of license, we have different levels of license, I'll get a home page with a site map down the left, you should expect. And as the others have been saying, good visibility through dashboards of things that are important to me in my particular role. So a big part of our implementation process. Next. A key strength in Workbench is the flexibility in the work breakdown structure. So in this simple example, we've got a job with what we call work centers, which you might think of as budgeted tasks. And then within that, specific cost activities that have been budgeted for that task within that job. And then in more complex projects, we have a multi-job structure. So we go 6 levels deep with any number of jobs at each level. So we've never seen that exhausted. When we think about quotations, obviously, what we're trying to do is get the client to go through a detailed cost estimating process, because the outcome is obviously attended to win the job, but also the relevant detail to create the meaningful cost budget on the project. Next. And so we have a number of different sort of estimating templates, but this is probably the most common one, where if you look at the top there, we're actually defining a number of tasks, if you like, that we're trying to price, and then below it are the cost items for that task. So we're simply just stepping through the detail. What is it we're pricing up? And what is the cost estimate? And we have a concept of bills of materials. So if it's a task you commonly do, you can define the cost makeup of that task through what we call a BOM. And so it just allows productive estimates. Scheduling people. So again, we're not trying to compete with Microsoft Project or Primavera. This is simply allowing us to assign our people and equipment to projects, so when people know where they are working. And then in the detail, you might be using something like a Microsoft Project if you need to plan at that level of detail. Next. One of the key things we've done is build an EBA interpreter, because with the sort of clients we have, the mine site type scenario, we wanted to capture from a job management point of view the work they've actually performed. But because we're passing this time through to payroll, we need to interpret that worked hours into what payroll needs to receive. And so it's a 24/7 clock, basically. And we capture start and end times, so we can work out, based on the particular award, which can be project centric, what data we need to send through to payroll, okay, based on worked hours. Approval processes. So we find there's a lot of discussion around this. So we have a concept of daily review and approval. So this is a job manager or project manager reviewing time that's been booked to their jobs. So by the time we get to the end of the week and we're ready to approve these timesheets to pass it through to payroll, we can see that at a detail level, all the time has already been reviewed and signed off. So it's really just a compliance thing now. As the person done their 40 hours, the job managers are happy with it, I can finally approve it and send it through to payroll. Supplier invoices, so we have automation. So the concept of going to an email account, getting the PDF, creating what we call a voucher, you might think of it as a draft invoice, extracting data. So we're presenting, and then based on workflow, routing it to the appropriate person. And obviously there could be a number of steps in the workflow for them to review and approve the invoice. And in our experience, once you're getting up to hundreds of invoices a month, then this becomes a no-brainer. And the PDF is passed through with the AP invoice through to the accounting system. And then, as I said earlier, the payment will happen in accounts payable and come back down to Workbench. Next. Stock for us is all about managing stock to consume on projects. We've had some clients where they might have two quite distinct business streams within the one legal entity, where they might be doing, let's say, some form of distribution, and they're doing projecting. So where we want more sophisticated stock, then we would use the stock in MYOB Advanced, for example. If it's just simple project stock, then typically we are managing inside Workbench, and you can have multiple locations and those sorts of things. Okay, excuse me. So with workflow, so all our different document types have workflow, and the concept is a person has an approval screen, so they're being alerted when documents are in their in tray, if you like, for approval. They're going to log in to the particular document and approve it, and then it will move on to the next step in the workflow. And it's all these approved documents that will go through to the financials. Contract management is a very strong area for us, and it's a big subject in its own right. But if you can see on that screen there, the concept of understanding all changes to budget, so variation registers and so forth, managing contingency variations, and importantly, forecasting. So if you look at the bottom there, you can see not only the current budget margin, but the forecast margin. So all about managing forecast cost to complete and understanding how the project is going to end up. And if you just look quickly across those tabs, so the things like our work in progress is relatively sophisticated. So we calculate earned value of work and produce WIP journals, etc. So we're very conscious of being a subsidiary ledger in an accounting sense and making sure we pass the appropriate journals up into the financials. Subcontracts, again, where you're engaging formally with a subcontractor. The concept of creating commitments and then certifying work against those commitments. We might be withholding retentions on the subcontractor. We're tracking their insurances, so all that compliance stuff. And the end result of a certification is an RCTI. So / payment schedule that will go off to the subcontractor. We update accounts payable and the payment will follow from the accounting system. Okay. Here's just an example of a contract claim. So again, typically we're taking clients off spreadsheets when they're doing progress claims. So all this is happening in Workbench, and we'll do the claim in Workbench, send it out for certification. Once we've got certification, update the accounting system, with the certified value. On the mobility side, again, there's two aspects. We talk about a site diary, so that is capturing transactional data in the field, timesheets, use of equipment, maybe even project stock, raising purchase orders. And then the other key aspect of our mobile platform is digital forms. So health and safety, pre-starts on equipment. So I'm sure you probably all appreciate this concept of being able to create digital forms. That's the way most of these mobile apps work. So you have the subject matter, we have the technology, and show you how to build your forms out. And the important thing is that all this is integrated into one environment. So all our project information and so forth is coming down into this platform, and then data is coming back. Things like SWIMs, safe work method statements. So these are all practical, non-financial things that are very common for the sort of clients we have. And rather than trying to manage the sort of compliance in a third-party application, certainly the feedback is very positive in the sense that it's one integrated system. So that's a good example of a digital form. Another one, accident reports. These are things that most of you are confronted with in some form. So being able to build the forms out. Just another one. Concept of punch items. So when we build out the forms, often a lot of the forms require maybe some follow-up action or corrective action. So if a question in a particular form fails, you might want workflow around it. So there's got to be some corrective action taken. So we call that a punch item. So now we've got a task on someone to perform to remedy whatever that problem was. Skills register. So as we know, particularly in the civil space, if we're out on a project site and our supervisor wants to get an employee to jump onto a particular piece of equipment, we've got to be happy that that person's accredited. So, maintaining a skills register. So these are just simple examples of the sort of things we can do. And here, the concept of a diary around the financial transactions, and yes, a typical timesheet on the phone. So that's, in summary, just a bit of an insight into Workbench.
Thank you, Clive. Look, and certainly we appreciate everybody staying on for a little over time. We did have a hell of a lot of content to get through, but just to wrap things up, we introduced Filip and Solution Minds Consulting. So where they come in is if you are unsure how to evaluate ERP and you really want to deep dive into that process, then that's something that they do. Or if you've already decided to go ahead, but you don't have resources to be project manage things on your side of the fence, that's an option as well. And we recognise that if they do an evaluation for you, they might not recommend either of the solutions we've presented today. But that's the risk we're willing to take, because we think for businesses that are a bit bigger or a bit more complex or want to be 100% sure on how they evaluate things, that's a good option for you. Alternatively, lots of our customers just reach out to us, and although we're not completely impartial, we're ethical. So we don't have to sell you software that doesn't suit your business. The first thing we're going to be talking about is, what do you do? How do you do it? What's going to fit best for you? I've shown you, I guess, a reasonable overview of particularly focusing on the ease of use of MYOB Advanced and Wiise, and really the devil's in the detail when you're looking at software. So on our website, there are videos of all the modules of each of those solutions. So when you want to start looking at manufacturing, for example, or the jobs module, then feel free to access those videos, or just reach out directly to us and we can provide a much more tailored demonstration to you. And then lastly, Clive with the Workbench solution. So very much sophisticated job costing, working in the civil space, dealing with plant and asset maintenance, as well as offline capability in the field. And we think that certainly works well for businesses that work in remote regional areas or mine sites, and or just have sophisticated job costing needs. So thank you for attending. Happy to take any questions that you may have. Everybody who attended will receive a recording of this session so that you can circulate it with other people in your business whenever you like. So yeah, I'll stop talking and feel free to fire away with any questions.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for attending. Thank you.